I feel so weird sometimes doing YouTube, and you guys honestly make it feel so worthwhile, and it really means a lot to me that I've been able to connect with you guys. So thank you so much for being part of this community. And I thought I would end the year with a Q&A, and there's actually quite a lot of questions, so let's just get straight to it. So Harindu asks, what should we be doing with our lives? Everything to me is so mundane. What is this all for? I personally do not think that purpose as such exists, or passion, or like having this reason for us being alive. I don't think that exists. I think Soul is actually a really good movie to watch. I think that really made me understand that purpose isn't, you know, things like our career and having this like one thing that we're meant to do with our life. It's everything. It's just being alive is our purpose. Like, that is as simple as it needs to be. But I also think we can bring meaning into our lives, and that meaning doesn't just come from us, it's how others perceive us. So I guess the best way for me to explain this is I've been thinking a lot about YouTube and, like, you know, me creating online and the potential for this to become a career. And sometimes I'm like, what is the point of it all? You know, like, what is the point of me sitting here and making these videos? Like, is this meaningful enough? But I guess it doesn't really matter if I think it's meaningful enough, because there's people on the other end who watches these videos, they think it's meaningful enough, and that's all that really matters. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day what I think. Okay, and then I've got one from Tiffany. So I'd love a video where you talk about the role spirituality and or religion plays in your life, and if it's an important thing to practice to give meaning to life. Good question, because I don't actually talk about religion and spirituality on my channel, but it does play a huge role in my life. I would say I'm probably more spiritual than I am religious, because I think with religion, I associate religion with this feeling of community and having the same beliefs as, you know, another group of people, and then you can practice together and things like that. But I've never really found that sense of belonging with my religion, or, you know, the people who are the same religion as me, which is why I've had a little bit of a disconnect. But I do believe in God. I do believe that, you know, there's a higher power, and it does give a lot of meaning and depth to my life, because I believe in something that is bigger than life itself. But that's very personal, and I don't think you necessarily need that to have meaning to your life, because I think there's so many things that we can't see yet we believe in. So like, love is something that you feel, you don't see, and I think that brings a lot of meaning automatically into our life. What to do with your life if you feel completely lost? I think that if you're feeling lost, it's actually okay to feel lost, and I think you should just lean into that. Like, don't panic about it. That gives you a chance to kind of just explore and figure things out as you go along. And that's actually sometimes the better way to live life. Like, I used to be an over planner where I had like 5-year, 10-year goals, and that didn't make me happy because I was never checking in with myself. So when you're lost, like, it's good because you can actually like use your present self as your compass and figure out what you want to do, and it just gives you so many more options. Something that I've been saying to myself a lot recently is stop taking life so seriously and live life more serendipitously. So when you're lost, I think you can really embrace serendipity. Shreya asks, have you ever felt that spark within you has died? If so, what did you do? I think I have definitely felt like that. I would say usually if I feel like the spark in me has died, it's because I'm not acting or like being in alignment with myself. So I'm like trying to be somebody else around people, or, you know, I'm in a career that, you know, sucking the soul out of me, things like that. And I think the way that I overcame all of those things was just to really get to know myself and just stand for myself, like make sure that everything that I was doing was a reflection of me and how I felt. And slowly but surely, you know, that spark came back, and it came back a lot stronger too. Okay, so we've actually had quite a few questions on dating, but I feel like I should probably give a disclaimer in that I don't feel like I've dated that much. I was always one of those people that went from like one long-term relationship to another long-term relationship, and I've had 2 relationships before getting married, and I didn't really date that much like in between. There was like maybe a really short window where I went on dates, but like not that much. So all of the advice I'm going to give for dating is like from my experience of like relationships a little bit of dating, but also like the advice that I give to like my family, friends who are actually actively dating, because I feel like that's the easier way for me to give advice. But I've had someone ask, how did I meet my boyfriend? Any dating advice? I think the most common advice I give to my friends is stop trying to like find people based on what you think they should be, and just be open to people instead. Like I think there's something that's really not great in that we kind of like have these tick boxes, like, okay, I want this guy to have this, be this, like, you know, he's got to be this religion and, you know, have this career and things like that. You have an idea of like what he's going to look like and all of these things. And I think that really does close you off to so many other people who could potentially make you so happy. I also think people have really bad expectations when they're dating. You know, I know so many friends who expect guys to do the things that they see on Instagram, like, you know, buy loads of flowers, take you to the fanciest places. And I don't think that's a good measure, or I personally don't anyway. I don't think that's a good measure of what a good partner is. I think there's so much more to that. The best dating advice that I could give is to think about your values, what you really value in your life and what you want in your life. And when you're looking for someone, try and think about if that person aligns with your values. So for me personally, family is probably the most important thing. And so when I was looking for a partner, for me, the question was always, would they be a good parent to our child? Like, would they be a good dad? You know, and I think that's just so much more important than whether they took me to fancy places. How has social anxiety interfered with romantic relationships and how to overcome it? To be honest, I can't really answer this question. I never really had social anxiety when it came to like being one-to-one with people. So with romantic partners, like that never happened. My social anxiety was always more like when there's a crowd of people. So I didn't really experience social anxiety like in that sense. More so like if I was, you know, like going out and there's a group of people, and if I would never do that though. I would never try to meet a guy, you know, like on a night out, because I know, one, that's not where I want to meet a guy anyway, but I also know that I'm not in my best state to want to meet someone in that way. So I guess how to overcome it would be to find yourself in situations where you can feel your best, and that's how you're more likely to find someone. Having just left another long-term relationship, how would I go about meeting someone again? I'm almost 30. Social circle is much smaller. Online dating seems extremely daunting. Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I've got quite a few friends who are in their 30s who are really struggling with dating. And I agree with you. I think dating has changed so much, you know, like with social media, dating apps and things like that. And I do genuinely think it's really hard. But I also think there's more options, and I think that's why it's really hard. You know, like when you think about our parents, they didn't really have much choice. I mean, my parents, like, you know, they got introduced and, you know, they had to say yes or no, like there was no choice. I think the problem nowadays is there's just so much choice, and you almost feel like, you know, if you say yes to someone, like, are you settling? Like, are you missing out on all the other guys that could be out there? So I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's so daunting. And I think you can't think that way. Like, I think you can't like feel like you're settling. But how would you go about meeting someone? To be honest, I think it really depends on what you're like as a person. If you're naturally quite outgoing, you go out a lot, like you're constantly meeting new people, then fine, like you've got nothing to worry about. If it was me, I'm really introverted. I don't go out all that much. I probably would have to rely on dating apps. And that for me is actually not a bad thing. Like, I know it's quite uncomfortable meeting someone that you've, you know, not met, but like talking to someone, you know, like online is quite easy for an introvert. Like, you know, it's easier than going out and meeting people in situations where you're not that comfortable. So I don't think dating apps are that bad. And actually, I have loads of people that I know that I've met on dating apps. And I also wouldn't worry too much about your age. You know, my cousin, he was, I think, 37 when he met his partner, and she was 38. And they've just had a healthy baby boy. So, you know, like, don't use like timing to make you panic, because I think then you will start making bad decisions. Do you have any suggestion on how to meet new people? I'm going to take this as friendship wise, and I've actually mentioned this before. So in the past, I used like friendship apps to meet people, and I would like try to go to classes to meet people. But the problem with that is every time I did that, it would be like putting myself out of my comfort zone, but in a really uncomfortable way. And that's really hard to sustain. So it meant that I would meet people once and then I wouldn't meet them again. And that's not how you develop friendships. So the advice that I give now is to just do the things that you naturally really want to do anyway. You know, like, so if you want to, you know, like learn how to paint, you're going to be going to painting classes regardless of if you're meeting people or not, because that's something you really want to do. So you're going to be really consistent with that. And that's how I've met most of the people that I know now. Like everyone I've met is through YouTube and like social media, because I'm very consistent with that. So I've consistently been able to come across the same people and then organize meetups. And it's me in my natural environment. So well, it's not natural, but I thrive a lot more. So that's what you need to do. And if you're not sure, you know, what interests you, just try lots of things until you figure out what interests you, but don't ever start things with the mindset that you just want to meet people. Do it for you first, and then the people will come. Your best friend's being negative and you are someone trying to be positive. How do you handle it? So I have actually had this situation, and I think as much as you can, you need to try and steer the conversation to be a bit more positive, or directly tell them like, look, I think you're being quite negative. Can we try and avoid it? But I also think there's such a thing as toxic positivity. I don't think it's possible or normal to be positive all the time, but also someone's negativity shouldn't really be affecting you to such a degree. You should still be there for your friends, but I think if it gets to the point where, you know, every single moment is taken up by that negativity, then you need to make a decision whether you should have boundaries or cut them off. Cutting people off is never nice, but sometimes you do have to do it. How do you manifest a passion into a feasible thing? I actually think that social media has helped this so much. It's really made like any career path more accessible, because if you wanted to sing, you can just start a YouTube channel and start singing, and people have actually done really well through that. If you want to do film and television, again, you know, like you can make short movies and find someone who does filmmaking and, you know, ask, can I act in that? Writing, I mean, writing it now is like so much easier. Like anyone can be a writer. You just have to go on, you know, create a blog or go on Twitter or Medium and start writing. So I would say just start, you know, use the online world to help you, and you just don't know where that path will lead you. How do we find what we want to do in our career? What was your experience with this? So I have a video for this called Figuring Out What I Want to Do in Life, so I recommend watching that. But I would say don't overthink career as well. I think a lot of us think we need to just like work out our career and have this like one answer, and that is not the case. Like I anticipate my career will continue to evolve and change all of the time. All you can do is follow curiosity and joy and see where things go, and just be open to opportunities. How to keep a work-life balance? Oh, this is such a hard one. I've really struggled with this throughout the year. I had an amazing work-life balance when I was working part-time, and it was just amazing because career was not the focus of my life, and that's how I like my life to be. This year I took a new job and I'm working full-time. I've got the YouTube channel, and it's just a lot to manage, so I feel like my work-life balance has skewed towards work a lot, and I'm determined to change that next year. It's one of my big goals. To be fair, it's my only goal, to be honest. It just means that I'm making every decision I can to protect my work-life balance. Even uncomfortable choices I'm gonna start making. It's an active thing. Like there's no productivity system that's gonna give you a work-life balance. You have to kind of make sacrifices. So you have to realize, look, if I want to have kind of like a life, focus on family, things like that, I might not be the most successful career person, and that's okay. Whenever you say yes to something, you say no to something else. So work-life balance is just choosing your yeses and your nos more wisely, and that's what I'm learning. Do you think it is wrong to me wanting to be rich? No, I don't think it's wrong. And I think like back in the day, I used to judge people who wanted money because I associated money with greed. Now that I'm older and I appreciate how much money can bring you and how important it is to kind of like have a life, I can never judge someone for wanting money. I think wealth is a bit of a weird one though, because I think a lot of people want to be millionaires, want to be rich, and they have no idea why. You know, like I think if you ask someone, they're like, oh, you know, I want to be financially free, I want to travel the world, I want to do this and I want to do this. And they're already, you know, like comfortable enough to be able to do some of those things. So it's kind of like, why are you striving for something that you could potentially have now? So I don't judge people for it, but I think some people just don't have the self-awareness to really ask themselves what they want and why they want it. And I also think some people are like, their ego is attached to wanting wealth. And in that case, I don't judge them for it, but I do kind of feel sorry for them. But I think we all have things that our egos are attached to, and I think that's something we're all striving to overcome, or like I am too. So yeah, I don't judge it, and I don't think it's wrong, but you have to have like that self-awareness to deep dive into why you want those things. And then I've got questions for preparing for my 20s and advice for people under the age of 21, 15 to 18. So watch my video where I give advice to my 20-year-old self. But I would say stop trying to prepare for your 20s. I think if you're trying to prepare for your 20s, it's because you're afraid that you're gonna waste them, but that's never gonna happen, because so long as you're kind of like on your own path, figuring life out, that's gonna be worth it to you in the long run. And everybody's 20s are gonna look different. There's no way of making sure that your 20s are perfect. It's like a messy time, but you know, that's the period to learn a lot about yourself. So it's really worth it. And then I got a lot of questions about what advice I'd give to people starting on YouTube and what I'd do differently if I started again. And I think I would just give the advice that don't start unless you're ready to commit for like a long time. Like, it's not easy. Don't expect that you'll make videos and that you'll just have like hundreds of thousands of subscribers and people wanting to watch. Like, it does take a long time. To be fair, I know people who did take off very quickly, but for me, it's taken a long time to get like, you know, any kind of traction on my videos. And even now it's still quite hard. So you have to like want to do YouTube for more reason than just the like numbers. You have to like enjoy it. And I would also say to kind of like, if you can't see the numbers growing, you need to look at like other signs that you could grow. So for me, this was comments that I was getting from people. Like, I had comments like, oh, you should have like this many subscribers, or like, oh my God, how have you not blown up yet? Like things like that. And they were my signals to say that one day I could grow. And that's what kept me going. So I know it's really hard to start on YouTube, but look for those signs if the numbers aren't showing you that growth. Do you believe in pretty privilege? Yes, I believe in loads of privileges. I hate the word privilege though, because I feel like privilege is just something that we've started using on social media a lot. And I think a better word for it is unfair advantages. There's a book on that, which is really good. And it's like, something that it says in that book is that any unfair advantage is a double-edged sword. It also says in the book, like, you know, if you don't have money, that obviously is not seen as a privilege, but it can sometimes help you because it makes you more resourceful. So I think definitely pretty privilege is a thing, but I also think it comes with like difficulties in itself. So I can imagine that someone who relies on being pretty to help them go ahead in life also is probably, I want to say, insecure, because they then rely on their looks to help them. They can't afford to have a bad day, you know, like a bad hair day, or, you know, where they're not feeling great. Like, that's going to then tear them down. And I don't know, I think if you have pretty privilege, then you might have other sides to you, like intelligence or other things that you've got going for you that might get overlooked. So I think pretty privilege exists, but I don't necessarily think it's something that we should envy other people for or look down on them for. Like, I think they will have their own struggles in life, even if looks isn't one of them. Okay, cool. So that was the last question. I've actually been talking for an hour and my tea is like so cold because I've just neglected it. But thank you so much if you did watch this, and just thank you so much for being a part of this community and just for showing your constant love and support. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the holidays. I hope you get to spend lots of time with your family and friends, and I will see you all in 2023.